With the WINN FM News, I am Kevin Brown. Our top stories. St. Kitts Prime Minister defends Cuban healthcare program amidst U.S. allegations. East Street affordable housing development nears completion. St. Kitts and Nevis advocate for gender equality and empowerment at United Nations Commission. Caribbean leaders defend Cuba's medical missions amid U.S. sanctions. Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell wants all outstanding constituency allowances owed to him. Internationally, U.S. arrests second student, imposes receivership on Columbia University. Now, the details. In a broadcast on March 14, 2025, Prime Minister the Honorable Dr. Terence Drew firmly defended St. Kitts and Nevis's relationship with Cuba and its program of hosting Cuban healthcare professionals, while also reaffirming the nation's commitment to international partnerships and sovereignty. This response comes in the wake of allegations by the U.S. concerning the treatment of Cuban medical personnel working within the Federation and the broader Caribbean region. Dr. Drew emphasized that St. Kitts and Nevis remains
principled and respectful relations with all nations, including the Republic of Cuba and the United States of America,
highlighting the deep intertwining of lives, histories, and futures with these nations. Prime Minister Drew underscored St. Kitts and Nevis's long-standing commitment to peace and multilateralism, framing their foreign policy as one guided by respect, cooperation, and adherence to the rule of law. He noted Cuba's crucial role in the Caribbean and advocated for its integration into hemispheric development initiatives for the benefit of all.
Cuba has been an indispensable partner to the Caribbean, and we believe its full integration into hemispheric development initiatives benefits all. A stronger, more prosperous Cuba is in the best interest of the Americas and the Caribbean, enhancing our collective security and sustainability.
Dr. Drew also acknowledged the United States as an invaluable development partner, expressing gratitude for their contributions and a commitment to strengthening that relationship. The Prime Minister personally attested to the benefits derived from the relationship with Cuba, citing his educational experiences as an example of the positive impact of this partnership.
Many of us in St. Kitts and Nevis and across the Caribbean have benefited immensely from the opportunities provided by Cuba. I, like so many of my fellow citizens, had the privilege of receiving a first-class education in Cuba. Additionally, I had the opportunity to pursue specialization studies in the United States of America.
The Prime Minister emphasized how these relationships have contributed to the socio-economic and political development of the region, proving that coexistence between nations with differing viewpoints is possible and beneficial. Since 2003, Cuban professionals have been welcomed in St. Kitts and Nevis, becoming integral in building a healthier and more resilient nation. Addressing the allegations directly, Prime Minister Drew was emphatic in his assertion that Cuban professionals in St. Kitts and Nevis are treated with dignity, fairness, and respect. He clarified the conditions under which these professionals work.
Cuban professionals in St. Kitts and Nevis are treated with dignity, fairness, and respect. They are provided with comfortable housing at the expense of the government. They receive compensation commensurate with the well-established and statutorily approved government pay scale for professionals with similar expertise. They retain their passports, are free to travel, have vacation leave, work standard hours, and enjoy working conditions equivalent to those of local professionals.
Dr. Drew unequivocally stated that St. Kitts and Nevis values its relationship with both Cuba and the United States, positioning the nation as a friend to all and an enemy to none, while remaining a staunch advocate for human and labor rights. Prime Minister Drew concluded by calling for dialogue between Cuba, the United States, and CARICOM, urging a spirit of mutual respect to address shared challenges such as economic stability, healthcare, and security. He argued that cooperation is essential for progress, while isolation and confrontation will only exacerbate existing struggles. The Prime Minister affirmed that St. Kitts and Nevis, as a sovereign nation, will continue to make decisions that align with the best interests of its people, guided by principles, justice, and national sovereignty.
Until then, St. Kitts and Nevis, as a sovereign nation, will always make decisions that align with the best interests of our people. Our policies are shaped by our principles, our commitment to justice, and our unwavering dedication to upholding our national sovereignty.
Outside of the issues with the Cuban workforce in the region, An article in the New York Times published on March 14, 2025 stated that the Trump administration is considering targeting the citizens of as many as 43 countries as part of a new ban on travel to the United States, which includes 6 countries in the Caribbean. There are 3 lists: red, orange, and yellow. The red list bars 11 countries' entry into the U.S. outright and includes Cuba and Venezuela. The orange list, which includes Haiti, requires an in-person interview to be granted a visa for entry into the U.S. St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, and Dominica are included in the yellow list of 22 countries that the U.S. says has 60 days to address perceived discrepancies, including, quote, failing to share with the United States information about incoming travelers, purportedly inadequate security practices for issuing passports, or the selling of citizenship to people from banned countries, which could serve as a loophole around the restrictions, end quote. More on this developing story in later reports. St. Kitts and Nevis is grappling with progress and setbacks in its housing initiatives. While the East Street affordable housing development nears completion, the ambitious East Coast housing development faces significant delays. The first building in the East Street affordable housing development is nearing completion and will soon welcome 4 families. The government, through the National Housing Corporation, is working to meet the tremendous demand for housing. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Housing, the Honorable Dr. Jeffrey Hanley, recently toured the 2-story building, which houses 4 2-bedroom apartments, to assess the progress.
I'm very pleased to have the opportunity of doing a walkthrough of the first 4 apartment building that we started through the initiative of our revitalization in East Bastia. Part of our vision is to redevelop some of these communities, and today we are witnessing homes that have been here in existence for some 70 years. NHC would have been able to transform them into what we are seeing here today. I have had the opportunity as a child running through the yards of many of these apartments, and they were 1-bedroom studio, as the modern name we use now, and to see that we were able to fit 4 2-bedroom apartments. Indeed, this is a great achievement for us as we continue with our housing solutions. As a minister with responsibility for housing, I am even super proud of the work that was done. The contractor, his community name Caboose, did an amazing job on the construction, and you had different persons from within the community working on different areas in terms of the electricals, and you had the plumbers, Thompson's Plumbing, and even the tiler is from East Bastia, Mr. Archibald. So I personally want to thank all of those individuals, the laborers, those who supervise the project manager. We are on our 2nd building to the bottom of East Street and Pond Road. That again will be another 4 apartments. We'll be able to help families within the Newtown community and other areas. And eventually we'll take out all of these buildings. So in a few years, East Street will be a place where persons might not be able to recognize.
Hanley highlighted the community's involvement in the project, praising the contractor and local workers, including electricians, plumbers, and tilers, for their contributions. He noted that a 2nd building with 4 more apartments is underway to revitalize the Newtown community and transform East Street. Despite the progress of East Street, the federal government's plans to build 2,400 smart homes during its tenure continue to raise concerns in St. Kitts and Nevis. The East Coast Housing Development Scheme, a TT $1.52 billion project envisioned to address the country's housing shortage and create jobs, has not progressed as planned. At a government press conference, Minister Hanley attributed the delay to challenges faced by the investor.
As you know, as a country, we engaged the East Coast Housing Development in assisting us in delivering some homes. Unfortunately, the 600 homes that we were anticipating, with all of the challenges that we might have been experiencing, not us so much as a government, but the investor, that has caused some delays. These matters are being worked on, and what I said to the Federation is that based on the contractual arrangement that we would have signed, the AG office, of course, is working on ensuring that the government's interest, which it is protected.
The East Coast Housing Project was initially presented as an ambitious program to construct climate-smart homes equipped with basic essentials. Hanley reported, though, that the National Housing Corporation approximately built 140 homes. Despite criticism that the initial target of delivering 600 homes within 2 years was not met, Hanley assured that the government did not lose any money.
We have not lost any money as a government, but we are committed in continuing with our home delivery. There are many investors are sending in proposals, and we are going through these proposals. The new method, the technology that was introduced, it took a longer time in terms of buy-in.
Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Housing, the Honourable Dr. Jeffrey Hanley. The Honourable Iseline Phillip, Minister of Social Development and Gender Affairs, Youth Empowerment, Aging and Disabilities, represented St. Kitts and Nevis at the Commission on the Status of Women 69th Session, CSW 69, on March 12, 2025. The session centered on national mechanisms for gender equality, empowering women and girls, recommitting resources and accelerating the Beijing Platform for Action implementation, all of which aim to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. Minister Phibbs addressed the Assembly, highlighting the deliberate steps taken by St. Kitts and Nevis to appoint experienced and competent women into leadership roles at the highest levels.
In St. Kitts and Nevis, we have taken deliberate and intentional steps to identify and appoint experienced and competent women into leadership roles at the highest levels. In 2022, the first female Governor General was appointed to office.
Phillip further noted the increased female representation within the executive and legislative arms of government, reaching 33%. She emphasized women's significant role in public administration, managing approximately 75% of the civil service as permanent secretaries and senior managers. The minister also outlined the nation's commitment to fostering future female leaders through youth-focused programs and organizations.
We also create enabling environments through youth-focused programs and organizations to encourage young women and girls to enter leadership. These programs and organizations help to hone and mold their leadership skills and develop their confidence and voices.
She cited robust student government programs in primary and secondary schools as key initiatives that encourage girls to advocate for their needs and the needs of their communities from a young age.
I believe that in St. Kitts and Nevis, we have certainly demonstrated the commitment to invest in and enable women and girls to occupy positions of leadership at the highest levels of power and in their communities by exercising the political will and establishing programs and systems to mold and support girls in entering spheres of leadership. We will continue to do so as this is part of our commitment to achieving the Beijing Declaration.
Addressing the policy shifts needed to promote gender equality and women's empowerment in the context of population and aging, Minister Phillip highlighted the unique challenges faced by women in St. Kitts and Nevis.
In the context of population aging in St. Kitts and Nevis, our latest population census indicated that life expectancy for women is in fact longer than men, whereby on average men live up to 69 and women until age 75.
She also noted increased reports of financial and physical abuse of the aging population, necessitating greater long-term care solutions that ensure seniors age actively and with dignity. Minister Phillip emphasized the need for improved health outcomes for senior men as well as the need to educate the public about estate planning and provide legal aid to prevent financial abuse of seniors.
These statistics tell us that we not only have to take steps to improve health outcomes of senior men who are often least likely to seek out healthcare, but we also need to educate and build awareness among our seniors and the general public so that they can create wills and do estate planning for the end of their lives. Legal aid and assistance targeted to our aging population would assist with reducing instances of financial abuse that our seniors experience. Furthermore, expanding public understanding and awareness of elder abuse as a common form of domestic violence is necessary, and enforcing the laws and penalties for relatives and caregivers who abuse our elders is necessary. We must note that elder women are predominantly victims of elder abuse since women statistically live longer than men and require more long-term care. So any collective efforts to combat gender-based violence must also recognize the variance of violence and abuse that older women face at this time, and we must take steps to address this violence as part of the elimination of gender-based violence.
Reflecting on her participation in the CSW 69, Minister Phillip deemed the session productive. Quote, I represented St. Kitts and Nevis and the group of Latin America and Caribbean countries, GRUNLAC, to advocate for gender development and empowerment agendas that are more inclusive of the increasing needs of men and boys, and shed light on increasing rates of domestic violence among senior women. End quote. She highlighted St. Kitts and Nevis's positive reception from women leaders and advocates worldwide, with well wishes extended from countries including the UAE, Burundi, Finland, Japan, Georgia, Canada, and Taiwan. The minister thanked the St. Kitts and Nevis Permanent Representative to the United Nations, Ambassador Mutris Williams, and the mission's counselors for their dedication to representing St. Kitts and Nevis on the international stage. Established in 1946, the CSW is the principal global intergovernmental body dedicated to promoting gender equality and the empowerment of women. The 69th session's main focus is the review and appraisal of the implementation of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action and the outcome of the 23rd Special Session of the General Assembly. This includes assessing current challenges affecting the implementation of the Platform for Action, the achievement of gender equality, and its contributions towards fully realizing the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development.
In regional news,
the diplomatic standoff escalated last month when U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced an expanded policy targeting what he termed Cuban forced labor, particularly focusing on the island nation's overseas medical missions. The policy would impose visa restrictions on current or former Cuban government officials and foreign government officials believed to be responsible for or involved in the Cuban labor export program, which Rubio characterized as exploitation of Cuban workers. Three regional leaders, Mia Motley of Barbados, Ralph Gonzalez of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Keith Rowley, the outgoing Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, have, however, pushed back at the policy. The president of the St. Lucia Cuba Friendship Association says St. Lucia should do the same, noting that the Cuban Medical Partnership has been instrumental in bolstering healthcare systems throughout the region.
I cannot speak for the government, but as an association, I believe we have to stand by our brothers and sisters because of what Cuba has done for us. Everywhere we look, as we look around, they are within us.
According to Alexander, the humanitarian assistance provided by Cuba to St. Lucia is unparalleled, noting that many of St. Lucia's physicians and other professionals have benefited from free training at Cuban universities. Currently, over 100 Cuban medical professionals are on the island as part of the Cuban medical mission.
Without the Cubans within our health sectors, St. Lucians, the population, will suffer when it comes to healthcare. You just have to go to OKEU, you have to go to within the communities, and you will see they are everywhere, okay? Take, for example, the eye clinic, at the Victoria Hospital, now the Polyclinic, Betty Wells Polyclinic, the Cubans that run the eye center, So it is not something we could easily stand by and watch happen without doing anything.
As the diplomatic tension continues to develop, it remains to be seen whether other CARICOM leaders, including those from St. Lucia, will align with their regional counterparts in publicly expressing solidarity with Cuba or yield to pressure from the United States. For the DBS News World, Zane Romulus reporting.
Since my name is Susu, in my capacity as the Member of Parliament, if I have to sue the executive to get me $10,000, I will sue the executive on behalf of the members of St. David. And time is money, so I hope there's an interest component of it.
Prime Minister and Parliamentary Representative for St. David, Deacon Mitchell, said he is willing to take legal action against Grenada's Parliament over failure to receive a $10,000 allowance as Parliamentary Representative for St. David. The $10,000 is paid by Parliament and lodged in a constituency account at a local bank, requiring the relevant MP and the staff of the office to be the two signatories on the checkbook to establish bank accounts if they have not already done so. Expenditure reports are also required to ensure compliance with the financial rules of utilizing state funds. The non-payment of his constituency allowance was one of the gripes raised by the Prime Minister during the 2025 budget debate.
That I may invite the residents and the constituents of St. David's to come down to the Parliament building and to protest on their behalf, because as the Prime Minister and a Member of Parliament for St. David's, I am yet to be paid this much talked about $10,000 constituency allowance. And it's not a laughing matter, Mr. Speaker.
PM Mitchell did not mince words as he closed off his contribution to the debate. He outlined his plans to ensure he collects his allowance to assist his constituents, and he wants it all with interest.
When the executive passed into law at last budget that a $10,000 constituency allowance should be given to an MP, Mr. Speaker, I don't need to open no bank account to get the $10,000. Whether it's $10,000 in cash, whether it's $10,000 in check, you need to give me the money so that I can represent and help support the people of St. David's. And I can account for the money, whether it's cash, whether it's check, because the same thing everybody else have to do. If I spend it, I get a receipt for it.
Mitchell said the support to his constituents comes from the generosity of the private sector, international partners, individuals in the constituency, people in the diaspora, and his personal salary as Prime Minister. GBN contacted Parliament to get a response to the Prime Minister's allowance claims and is awaiting a response. Cherry and Blackman Stephen, GBN News.
We now bring you these international reports.
At Columbia University, protests continue with students covering their faces in fear of being doxxed amid ongoing attempts to crack down on student activists. On Thursday, Homeland Security agents searched 2 student dorm rooms. They later announced a Palestinian student demonstrator would be deported for overstaying her visa. The Justice Department is also involved.
That investigation is ongoing, and we are also looking at whether Columbia's handling of earlier incidents violated civil rights laws and included terrorism crimes.
Columbia's interim president, Katrina Armstrong, said in a note to students and staff that she was heartbroken. But it happened as the university doled out punishment to students who took part in the occupation of a campus building last spring. And just days after the Trump administration said charges to the school's discipline and admissions processes would be necessary if the school wanted to get back $400 million in government grants and contracts it was canceling.
I can't tell you how much time my colleagues and I are spending talking to each other, talking to our junior colleagues, talking to our students about how frightened everyone is and concerned for their safety.
Despite a heavy security presence on and off campus, students and faculty here report a growing sense of unease. The U.S. government says it's cracking down on anti-Semitic terrorist-aligned activity on campuses, but lawyers for the students describe it as a chilling attempt to stifle legitimate political free speech.
Okay, he's not resisting. He's giving.
A newly released video shows the detention of student activist Mahmoud Khalil, a legal permanent resident. It was taken by his pregnant wife. He's currently being held without charge in a Louisiana detention facility. Lawyers are fighting his deportation, as well as suing the school for releasing student disciplinary records to Congress.
The general mood of the family and of the community surrounding Mahmoud is fear, but also great courage in face of that fear, where they are continuing to mobilize, they're continuing to show up in support of Mahmoud, and they will not be silenced.
The fight for Palestinian rights now moving from the streets to the courts, with the administration warning of more deportations to come. Kristen Salumi, Al Jazeera, New York.
Negotiations over the next stage of the Gaza ceasefire have broken down. That's according to Hamas officials. They say there are significant gaps over key parts of the deal, while the US has accused the group of making entirely impractical demands. Our correspondent Emir Nada has more from Jerusalem.
The BBC has seen a statement from Hamas that says that there were major gaps in the negotiations that were taking place in Qatar. These were negotiations led by the US. The US presidential envoy Steve Witkoff had put forward a proposal to extend the first original phase of the ceasefire, which expired at the beginning of March. He proposed to extend that to mid-April. It would allow for hostages to be released and Palestinian prisoners to be released in exchange, but it would delay the discussions around a permanent end to the war in Gaza, and that appears to be the main sticking point, according to the Hamas side. They, as the Hamas side, are saying that they want the next stage to lead towards a complete withdrawal of Israeli troops from key sites in Gaza, while we understand that the Israeli side is resisting withdrawal from key sites such as the border, the Gaza-Egypt border. They wish to remain there, we understand. Now, despite originally agreeing to negotiations for a full end to the war taking place, going forward into the second stage of the ceasefire, Israel is resisting that, and it appears to be putting pressure on Hamas via halting aid and electricity to Gaza. We understand that the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office will meet with the negotiating team who've just returned from Qatar, and after that we expect to hear more from the Israeli side.
Tesla, the electric vehicle maker owned by Elon Musk, is warning the US government that American exporters could be harmed by countries retaliating against tariffs imposed by Donald Trump. The company has sent an unsigned letter outlining its concerns on the same day that Mr. Trump praised Tesla at an event at the White House. Here's Lily Jamali.
It's 0 to 60 miles an hour in 2 seconds.
This week, the White House lawn became a makeshift Tesla showroom. President Trump vowing to buy one in a bid to throw Tesla and its CEO Elon Musk a lifeline.
Which car are you going to buy? The one I like is that one.
After surging following Trump's election win, Tesla's share price has plunged, losing around half its value since peaking in December, falling back to pre-election levels. In a letter sent on Tuesday, Tesla warned Trump's U.S. trade representative of the, quote, downstream impacts of certain actions taken to address unfair trade practices. In other words, tariffs, warning that retaliatory actions by other nations could harm U.S. electric vehicle makers. The note was unsigned, Mr. Musk not commenting for now. But it's Mr. Musk's politics that may be hurting Tesla most. His work as President Trump's government efficiency czar and his recent far-right leanings have drawn swift backlash. Sales have plummeted here.
I think his polarizing approach more recently, I think has turned some buyers off.
Meanwhile, sales in Germany fell more than 70% last month. Mr. Musk has been accused of attempting to influence elections there, too. Early on Friday, 4 Teslas were set on fire in Berlin, police not ruling out a political motive, the latest sign of how charged the company's image has become. Lily Jamali, BBC News, San Francisco.
NASA says global sea levels rose by more than expected last year. The agency blamed an unusual amount of ocean warming combined with water from melting glaciers. 2024 was the hottest year on record. Henna Hundal is a delegate to the UN climate change conferences, and she spoke to me earlier telling me the significance of the rising levels.
The global sea level rise is higher than expected. It clocked in around 0.59 centimeters per year. It was expected to be around 0.43 centimeters per year. Why does this matter? Well, two reasons. Number one, it's not just that the sea levels are rising. We know that. It's actually that rate of change. The rate of that rise is picking up. And number two, about 2/3 of this rise was deemed to be due to thermal expansion, which is the warming of the ocean water. So as we have a greater concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, that's trapping heat. And our oceans are actually absorbing around 90% of that heat. And of course, that's not without consequences. And I think that's the issue we're dealing with right now.
So when we say we've got the melt, the ocean levels are rising, is this a uniform process?
Well, the issue right now is that because around 2/3 of that rise was due to thermal expansion, the ocean actually trapping that excess heat. I mean, we're seeing the effects of this excess heat throughout the world. 2024 was the hottest year on record. It featured the hottest summer on record, which included the hottest day on record. So when we really take a step back and look at the lay of the land here, it's not a pretty picture. And unfortunately, now is the time to be really honing in on policies that help us facilitate that critical energy transition toward the clean energy economy of the future, away from these greenhouse gas emissions that are underlying a lot of these processes.
Where are we with nations agreeing that something has to be done? Because every time we have the climate change COP that is held, people lose more and more hope. I mean, we can't help those glaciers recover, can we? So what can be done?
It's very important to think about, 2/3 of that global sea level rise was due to thermal expansion, 1/3, though, due to the melting of glaciers and ice sheets. So we have so much to think about in terms of how do we actually get a handle on this situation. And you're absolutely right. We need multinational collaboration on this issue. And unfortunately, at this very moment here in the United States, we had President Trump take the U.S. out of the Paris Agreement, just like he did during his first term in office. The U.S. missed the recent meeting of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is the global authority on climate change and whose reports really underpin all global climate policy. And, now the head of the Environmental Protection Agency here just announced that it would be the most consequential day of deregulation in U.S. history, meaning that he's looking to target those key climate regulations that President Biden had put forth. So unfortunately, very precarious.
Hannah, very quickly, I think many people are familiar with President Trump's approach to climate change. Who is doing it right?
I think, interestingly, actually, China is sort of stepping up in terms of clean energy. They're really leading the charge there, which is a very fascinating development to see. So I'm very hopeful that we'll see some continued progress there, and maybe they will step into the fold. I mean, a lot remains to be determined. We know that in 2021, at the UN Climate Change Conference that occurred in Scotland, China and India sort of teamed up together to try to suppress a movement to transition away from coal. So, there's so many pieces here that are in flux, but I'm hopeful that, with some of that leadership in Asia around clean energy, maybe more countries will step up from the fray.
You were listening to the WINN FM 98.9 newscast. Our top stories were:
St. Kitts Prime Minister defends Cuban health care program amidst U.S. allegations. East Street affordable housing development nears completion. St. Kitts and Nevis advocate for gender equality and empowerment at United Nations Commission. Caribbean leaders defend Cuba's medical missions amid U.S. sanctions. Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell wants all outstanding constituency allowances owed to him. Internationally, U.S. arrests second student, imposes receivership on Columbia University.
Thank you for listening.